The following is a non-profit and fan-based adaptation. Fire Emblem Awakening, and all related terminology are owned by Nintendo and Intelligent Systems. This is a work of fan fiction and love. Please do not sue us.
Fire Emblem Awakening, Invisible Ties, Episode 4. Robin grinned next to Chrom as Raimi led them through the snow-coated roads of Ferox. The tactician took in everything with wide-eyed wonder, like a child on vacation for the first time. He paid particular attention to the roving bands of warriors that populated the frozen countryside, further reinforcing the prince's decision to hire the amnesiac. Robin looked up at the sky, a giant grin on his face as he studied the snow that had just started falling from the clouds above them.
You seem to be enjoying yourself.
This is all so fascinating. This is all new to me. I mean, I know I don't have any memories anyway, but still.
Chrom chuckled a little, lifting his own face to look at the gray clouds hanging overhead. It only snowed briefly in Illistol during the beginning of the year, and never lasted in the lower city-state like it did in Ferox or the Elysian city-state of Jagan in the mountains to the east. Chrom was first to admit that, while he found the snow to be somewhat aesthetically pleasing, he found no joy in it interrupting his training every year.
You should do what Lissa does and try to catch the snowflakes on your tongue.
Chrom, I do not do that anymore. I'm not a child.
That sounds great. I'll bet I can catch way more than Lissa ever did.
Oh, it is so on.
The tactician increased his pace, rushing ahead, spreading out his arms and sticking his tongue out as far as it could go. The young princess actually flinched at Robin's declaration, eyes narrowing as she turned her glare at the tactician. Lissa gave Robin a little shove when she caught up with him, her own head thrown back and tongue extended as she tried desperately to beat him.
I think the squirt's got the advantage. She's got the bigger mouth after all.
The other shepherds simply grinned or chuckled at the childish display, allowing the two their fun. Even Chrom was content to allow his sister to relax a little, something she couldn't really cut loose and do often back in Illistol since she had come of age. Moreover, Chrom didn't want to do anything to put a damper on the mood. Miriel seemed to be the only unamused party, bearing a look of stark revulsion as she pushed her glasses further up her nose.
How unsanitary.
After almost another week of marching, the shepherds reached the city-sized amphitheater that was the seat of the Khan's power, known by the locals simply as the Colosseum. Admittedly, it was an impressive sight. Huge gates set into a towering, curved wall were the only entry points. There were uncountable positions for archers. The colossal edifice was more fortress than a sporting arena. Raimi looked proudly at the towering edifice. Obviously, it was a great source of pride for the people of Ferox. The steps up to the great amphitheater were coated in snow, and Chrom had to watch his footing, lest he fall and make an arse of himself. After that debacle at the North Road gate, the last thing he wanted was to lose face. Again. Robin walked alongside him, subtly pressured to the front of the column by their Feroxi escorts, who paid him a certain deference for besting their commander. It had been amusing watching them make sure he marched at the front of the column with Chrom and their guide. At one point, the flustered tactician was literally picked up by the scruff and carried to the front by Raimi herself.
Welcome to the seat of Feroxi power, Your Highness.
It's big.
It has to be. It's the only place that people from the east and west gather and don't fight. We need a lot of space to keep out of each other's hair.
So the city is one giant arena?
It's constructed out of several rings. The biggest arena is in the center, right below the Khan's quarters.
Fascinating.
The shepherds stared, too. Not even the Grand Cathedral or Exalt's Palace in Illistol were as big. Chrom was sure he even heard a little odd gasp from Lissa. Raimi led them through the outer wall and past dozens of other darker-skinned Feroxi soldiers, and Chrom noticed again that no two of them wore matching armor or bore similar armaments. Furs and leathers adorned the warriors, seemingly chosen and cobbled together at random. trophies from hunts and colored tabards denoting what Chrom assumed was either rank or home village clashed with long hair and braided beards wherever he looked. Even more surprising to Chrom was the number of women he saw serving alongside the men. It wasn't unheard of in Elise for women to take up arms, but they usually stuck to support roles such as the Pegasus Knights, Sully being a notable exception. But these Feroxy women seemed to be at least equal to the men.
Why is there no uniformity to the Feroxy troops?
As warriors, we are individuals. We serve individual warlords who in turn serve the Khans. A warlord's army is only as big as they can maintain, so our leaders must earn their armies.
And who do you serve?
The wall guards answer directly to the reigning Khan.
And that is...
During the Khan meet, no one. The wardens are the highest authority in Regna Ferox until the Khan Regnant is decided.
Then we can just ask you for aid against Plegia.
It'd be easier to wait and ask the Khan. I'm not the only warden, and we all have to agree before we can do anything.
Of course it wouldn't be that easy.
They followed Raimi between buildings, taking in the Feroxy culture. Blacksmiths hammered on anvils outside their shops while herders moved livestock to tanneries. The city stadium gave off an air of heavy industry, like the nation was preparing for war. Obviously, the Khan had caught wind of the political climate in the south and was preparing accordingly. Before Chrom even realized where they were, the shepherds were standing inside a large utilitarian receiving hall. At the far end of the hall hung the massive crest of Ragna Ferox fashioned from polished steel, a wolf and bear rearing up and locked in combat with an axe and sword crossing behind them. A stern-faced man with messy brown hair in a blue coat with fur around the collar came and led the rest of the shepherds to where they would be able to wait comfortably, leaving Chrom alone with Frederick, Robin, Lissa, and Raimi.
Prince Chrom, please wait here while I summon the Khan.
Of course.
The warden bowed slightly, leaving through a door at the end of the hall. On the outside, Chrom was the perfect picture of calm confidence. On the inside, he was more nervous than he had been before his first duel. At least, just like during that duel, he still had Frederick to back him up as his second. But now he had Robin, too, as well as the growing roster of the shepherds, and that thought put him more at ease than any other.
The Khan is away?
Out training, I'd wager. The Khans are said to prefer battle to politics, much like the rest of their nation.
A warrior ruler, huh? I can picture him now. A giant man with arms as thick as my head, swinging an axe that would take 2 average men to lift, his chest a forest of thick hair.
Am I now? I don't know about the chest hair, and I prefer my sword to an axe, but please, go on.
They all spun to face the direction Raimi had left, Robin going pale while Chrom tried hard to stifle his laughter at his new friend's reaction, reminding himself that he was present as a representative of the Halidom. Fortunately, he was doing a better job than Lissa, who was quite obviously choking on her giggles. The woman striding towards them was easily as tall as Frederick, and, clad in masterfully crafted red and silver armor, she cut an imposing figure. Her skin was the usual Feroxy tan color, a few shades lighter than had been prevalent in the marketplace, and her long blonde hair was tied back in a messy ponytail. Chrom guessed that she was at least 40, but she carried herself with the spring in her step of a much younger woman. Chrom also noticed the large sword resting on her shoulder, and instantly began regarding her as a warrior rather than a ruler. Raimi stood just behind her, a wicked grin pointed in Robin's direction as her ruler sheathed the massive weapon in her hand.
The Khan, I presume?
One of them, yeah. I'm the East Khan, Flavia. I apologize for the incident at the border, Prince Chrom. You and your shepherds are welcome in Ragna Ferox.
The Khan eyed Robin as she answered, grinning in amusement as the tactician tried to make himself as small as possible beneath his coat. Chrom nodded and stepped forward, offering his hand. Flavia looked at it for a moment before grasping Chrom's wrist in a warrior's greeting. Chrom returned the gesture, and Flavia grinned a little.
So, I assume you've had a similar problem with bandits. Posing as Elysians, and me, no less.
Yes, those Plegian dogs. I wasn't completely sure until I personally took the field and heard the accent. No Elysian speaks the way a Plegian does, no matter how good an actor he thinks he is. And, no offense, Prince Chrom, but I've killed 6 Chroms at 6 separate gatehouses. Their king must see some benefit in trying to pit our nations against each other.
Damn them! Forgive me, my Lady Khan. That was indelicately put.
Yes, damn them and damn delicacy! Here in Regnaferox, we prefer plain speech, Prince Chrom.
Well, in that case, you should have a word with your damn border guards. They almost gave me a bunch of new breathing holes.
Wish I had been there to see it.
Yes, I can tell I like you already. You understand proxy diplomacy. But I know why you're here, Princeling. Unfortunately, I cannot provide you with the reinforcements you have come seeking.
Chrom didn't flinch, didn't deflate, and didn't show any outward sign of his disappointment, as was proper during international negotiations. Lissa, however, held no such compunctions and showed enough for the both of them.
What? But why?
I lack the authority.
I don't understand. I thought you said you were the Khan.
As I said, I am one of the Khans. There are 2 of us, East and West, and every few years we hold a tournament to see who will become the new Khan Regnant, as well as who leads the armies. It's the Khan Regnant that has the final say in whether or not you get our troops, and until one is decided...
So, we're to receive no aid at all.
Not if you give up so easily, little princeling.
So we show up during the middle of their big ruler tournament when the nation is effectively leaderless, and the East Khan is proposing an alliance if you enter the tournament and win for her, because Khans just don't fight in it themselves. Basically, it's one-on-one, you fight to the death or until the other concedes, and the Khan that the winner represents gets the top job. No pressure.
Gee, thanks.
Look at it this way instead, it's also a kind of national holiday, right? So even if you lose, we still get to go out drinking afterwards.
Not helping.
Chrom, Robin, Frederick, and Lissa stood just outside the central fighting arena, a great field littered with stones in the exact center of the Colosseum. Hundreds of Feroxi crowded the stands around the arena, chanting and cheering. Chrom was to represent Flavia as the East Khan's champion. If he won, Elise got its troops. If he lost, he would simply have to grovel to the West Khan. Not that Chrom was inclined to lose a duel. Frederick stepped forward, shooting the tactician a glare.
I'll be right behind you, my lord. I won't let any harm befall you.
We can't interfere with the duel, Frederick.
If my lord's life is in danger, I will not hesitate.
Will you 2 give it a rest? Neither of you are helping. Chrom, go out there and kick that other guy's butt. I know you can do it.
Thanks, sis.
It's fine. I actually get to see this one, so...
The Elysian prince grinned and shook his head at his sister's antics, giving her head a thank you pat before turning to the arena. Flavia had stated the rules of the duel simply. 2 champions, no time limit, victory to the last man standing. Taking a deep breath, Chrom strode forward into the arena, standing as tall and proud as he could manage. He stopped near the center of the arena and waited, unconsciously kneading the grip of falchion in its sheath. Back beneath the stands, Robin closed the spellbook he had been distractedly scribbling in with a loud clap and slipped it back into his pouch. Despite what he had said to Frederick, he also wanted to be ready to intervene if Chrom's life appeared to be in danger. He had no doubt that the knight wouldn't hesitate, but it never hurt to err on the side of caution in a foreign nation where everyone could be a spy or assassin. He had been making notes that he hoped would eventually amount to a whole new spell utilizing cold air and the moisture in it, but the duel was slightly more important. The crowd cheered. A man had entered the arena from the opposite side and was walking up to Chrom. He wore fine blue clothes and armor, and a familiar slit-eyed mask on his face. Robin dropped his own hand to rest by the hilt of his rapier. This was going to be a brutal fight.
Frederick! Robin! Look!
I see him.
What's he doing here fighting against us? I thought he was on our side.
I don't think he's on anyone's side. Watch him closely. I do not trust him.
You don't trust anyone, though.
Be that as it may, watch him closely.
Yeah.
Chrom's brow furrowed as he drew his sword. He held it low, though, at rest.
You're my opponent?
I am.
I would speak first before we fight, Marth.
Marth stood, silent and impassive, simply looking at Chrom. Chrom growled his irritation, raising Falchion with an over-the-shoulder flourish.
Fine. You saved the lives of my friend and sister, so I will attempt to show you mercy. Our blades will speak for us.
Marth hesitated a moment, before nodding and mimicking Chrom's flourish. The sword that he raised was, impossibly, an exact copy of the unique blade in Chrom's own hands.
Mockery! Wait. Where did you get that sword? There's no way.
Marth didn't answer, his face unreadable behind his mask as the two swordsmen faced each other. Chrom set his own face in a scowl, clearing his mind of any lingering, superfluous thoughts.
Very well, I'll beat the answers I seek out of you. Have at you!
With no further warning, Chrom sprung into motion, leaping into the air and flipping end over end, bringing Falchion down. Marth parried the blow easily, knocking Chrom's blade aside and twirling around him. Chrom spun, blade extended as the two swords blurred through the air as they struck again and again. Minutes passed as the two equally matched warriors traded blows. Their breathing grew heavy. Chrom was unnerved to admit that the man's fighting style mirrored his own, which he had been forced to develop himself after his father died. A mixture of Elysian fencing, Feroxy high striking, and his own creations sprinkled throughout. No one else could possibly know it. The only other people even acquainted with it were Frederick and Lissa, the man who taught him fencing and the girl he was in turn teaching.
Tell me, who taught you how to fight like this?
My father!
As Marth answered, he sprung into the air and performed the same flipping downward strike Chrom had minutes before, forcing the Elysian prince to roll to the side to avoid the unexpected blow. Chrom shook off his shock and struck low, overbalancing himself in a surprise lunge, aiming for Marth's legs. The trick worked, and Marth stumbled back, sword dropping as Chrom threw his entire weight forward, rolling and coming up, planting his shoulder in Marth's chest. The other man grunted as the air leapt his lungs, and Chrom followed up with a swift headbutt, cutting himself on the corner of the man's mask. Marth reeled back as Falchion flashed, missing his neck by millimeters. Chrom was through holding back, and pressed his advantage as blood began to trickle from his own forehead. He switched his weight to his rear foot and spun, slashing diagonally. Marth again narrowly avoided the blow, but Chrom saw he had cut through the top layer of the man's clothing. Marth tried to get his own sword up, but Chrom was still too close. The prince grabbed the wrist of Marth's sword hand and yanked hard, pulling the other man onto his knee. Marth doubled over, his copy of Falchion clattering to the arena floor as his hand went to hold his stomach, the air in his lungs rushing out in a strangled gasp. Chrom rested his own sword against the man's neck.
Impressive, if not surprising. I yield, sir.
Chrom nodded and lowered Falchion. The duel had been ferocious, but had barely lasted more than a few minutes. The crowd erupted in deafening cheers, and Chrom raised his blade above his head in victory, making the cheering even louder. He turned as he lowered Falchion, intending to help his opponent to his feet, only to see Marth caped back as the man left the arena. Reaching up to wipe the blood from his face, Chrom couldn't help but give voice to his thoughts, watching Marth go, his voice being swallowed up by the roar of the crowd.
What a strange man.
After the duel, Chrom and the others were reunited, the rest of the shepherds apparently having been brought to a special room overlooking the arena, before being led to Flavia's new chambers as other warriors began competing to work out the other high military ranks in the Ragna Ferox army. The sitting room the shepherds were brought to was plain, but homey, like everything else Chrom had seen of Ragna Ferox. A happily crackling brazier sat in the center of the room, illuminating the space and providing heat for the occupants sitting on the plain wooden benches covered in animal furs. Lissa tended to the wound on Chrom's forehead as the others sat in waiting.
I have to admit, I never expected to see a prince fight like that.
Like what? Ah, sister, be careful. That still stings.
Oh, don't be such a baby.
I didn't expect to see you fight so brutally, I guess. I expected there to be a lot more flashy, useless sword moves in a duel. That was almost like watching a real battle.
Most nobles might fight like that, but I don't have the patience to pretend. Elise is still in a precarious position, and I don't have time to waste showing off.
Robin nodded, satisfied with the prince's answer, but before he could speak, the two large doors at the end of the room burst open and Flavia entered the room with a large smile plastered on her face.
Well spoken! And, more importantly, well thought. I was right to put my faith in you, Prince Chrom. You have my respect, which is not something easily earned. And perhaps more to the point, you have your alliance. Elise will have her troops and I will lead them personally.
Thank you, Conregnant.
I should thank you. It feels like forever since I've held full power instead of that oath. Come, my new friends. Tonight we celebrate Feroxy style.
Before the shepherds could respond by asking what exactly that would entail, Flavia had swept out of the room and was already calling out orders for the feast.
Bah! Any excuse to get drunk and that woman's all over it.
Chrom and Robin both turned at the new voice. A giant of a man now leaned against the doorway opposite the entrance. The bald, mahogany-skinned Feroxy man in gold armor was wearing an eye patch that couldn't entirely cover his furrowed brow as he surveyed the shepherds.
I'm sorry, have we met?
I'm the West Con you so rudely deposed, boy. You're quite skilled for one so young, lad, I'll give you that. And to think, I just got in my chambers the way I like them. But I'm quick to forgive and forget. This just means that all those annoying advisors and hangers-on will stop following me around for a few years. At least until I reclaim my throne next tournament. My name is Basilio, the great and mighty Prince Chrom, and I'm honored to know you.
The two clasped wrists, and Chrom decided quickly that he liked the giant of a man, too. He, like Flavia, was charismatic and loud, but Chrom could tell he was a formidable warrior and obviously a natural leader all the same. Chrom also noted that the Westcon seemed older than Flavia. It was the way he held himself, the look in his one visible eye that told Chrom the man had seen much in his lifetime.
I'm curious, Con Basilio. What do you know of the man I fought?
Who, that Marth guy? He's just some sellsword with delusions of grandeur. Just turned up one day and knocked my old champion flat on his arse, so I asked if he wanted a job. It was love at first sight, I'd say, and I'm usually too old for such things. Anyway, he's up and disappeared. Fled off into the night as soon as you beat him.
He's so dark and mysterious.
Well, at least he has one fan.
Hey, come on. I'm just saying, he is kinda dreamy, isn't he?
I'm afraid I wouldn't know, my lady.
You're kind of dreaming.
Sheesh, big brother, excuse me for being human.
As interesting as this discussion is, perhaps we should be preparing for our return to Elise? The Exalt must be informed of the reinforcements with all due haste.
But you'll miss the great feast Flavia's no doubt set about planning.
Yeah, you already cost me one feast. As your princess, I order you not to deprive me of another.
Besides, I took the liberty of sending one of my fastest messengers to inform the Exalt of just that. She'll be back here before you even make it halfway to the capital, even if you leave now. Think of it as my last act of goodwill as Conregnant.
Well, I guess a little break wouldn't hurt.
Yes!
Then I trust you have lodgings prepared for us?
Oh, you can just leave everything to old Basilio.
The four shepherds walked out onto a wide open area in one of the upper levels of the Colosseum, an expansive room easily as large as the Great Hall in Elise, but with a much lower ceiling. Feroxy finery was everywhere, animal skins and pelts, braziers and tables of food and drink. Off to one side was a gratuitous amount of training gear, and further on Robin could see an entire armory, complete with a miniature smithy. The other shepherds were already present and clearly very comfortable, and Robin ached to join them. He had been on his feet all day and would kill for a mug of ale.
Wow, would you look at this place?
Hey, there you guys are. We started without you.
Welcome to my humble abode. At least for the next few days, anyway. And Flavia moves in, and I get stuck wherever my junk falls. Make yourselves at home. We have time before the ceremony where Flavia gets my fancy crown.
Basilio laughed uproariously as he led Robin and the others to the center of the room, the big man flopping down onto a couch covered by a great bear pelt central to the grouping of the other chairs and pelts. Chrom and Lissa chose seats near Sumia, whose gaze hadn't left Chrom since they had entered. Robin opted to sit closer to Vaike and Virion, which also happened to be nearer Basilio.
Of course, Con Basilio.
Bah! It's just Basilio, boy, even when I was conregnant. I hate titles. Besides, you're clearly strong enough to address me as an equal.
Lissa wasted no time regaling the others with the blow-by-blow of Chrom's duel with Marth, reasoning that she had a better vantage from Arena's side. Robin only half listened, sneaking glances at the Con when the older man wasn't looking. Basilio caught him staring, though, his voice rumbling quietly so he wouldn't interrupt Lissa's story and making Robin jump a little. He was sure he had been more subtle, not to mention he was sitting on the Con's blind side.
What is it?
I'm just curious why you're being so hospitable.
Well, the boy and the squirt are technically visiting royalty. Plus, at my age, I like to live vicariously through young warriors such as yourselves. Makes me feel young again myself.
Basilio was smiling wistfully as Lissa went into great detail about her brother's unorthodox tactics, her description involving heavy use of hand gestures and miming. As her story continued, the blue-coated man Robin had seen lead the others away came and whispered something into Basilio's ear, which made the man groan softly.
Well, she can wait. I just got comfortable, and technically I'm still conregnant right now.
Is there something we should know?
Just Flavia wondering where her new drinking buddies have up and disappeared to. It'll do her good to have her wait. Keep her humble.
Robin shared a quiet laugh with the Con as Lissa wrapped up her description of the duel.
It was so awesome!
I'm just sorry I missed it.
Sully had a particularly fierce look on her face, and even Stahl was starting to edge away from the woman, despite the fact that they had been nigh inseparable since he had caught up the day they had first set out.
It was a good duel. I'd say that I taught my lord well.
Oh, so you taught him that headbutt. I'd never expected such an underhanded tactic from an Elysian knight.
Ah, yes. Well, I wouldn't exactly say it was.
Anyway, this is Lonku, my previous champion. The one Marth knocked flat on his arse.
Basilio sat up as he spoke, motioning over his shoulder with his thumb at the man in blue that had come in earlier. The severe-looking man, Lonku, frowned even more at Basilio's glib tone, but held his tongue.
He'll be going with you when you leave. He doesn't talk much, but he's damned good with a sword. Just as good as Marth in my mind. I honestly can't figure out how he's beaten so handily. Anyway, consider him West Ferox's first contribution to the war effort.
Chrom looked confused, but it was hard not to be taken in by Basilio's charisma. After a few moments of hesitation, the prince and a few others stood to greet the newcomer. Lissa eyed the swordsman, taking a few steps towards him. But for every step she took, Lonku retreated, his face going pale.
Marth beat him? But he looks so big and strong!
Away, woman!
What? What did I do?
Oh, that never gets old. Lonku here has a thing about women. They tend to put him on edge, make him nervous. Nonetheless, he is the best warrior under my command. He may even make Khan one day if he can get over his fear.
Alright then. Welcome aboard, Lonku. You're sure about joining us?
He gives the orders. I stab people. I think our rules are clear. Now you're the one telling me who to stab.
I like the way this guy thinks.
There are quite a few women in the Shepherds.
Ah, you're the one that bested Raimi. The tactician.
I am.
It will not be a problem. There are many women warriors in Ragnar Ferox. I am adept at avoiding them. Before Robin could continue the conversation, Flavia burst through the double doors at the end of the room, making as much noise as possible with Raimi in tow, followed by a train of servants carrying platters of food and kegs that no doubt held the best wine and ale she could get her hands on. She laughed merrily, swinging a half-full tankard around, some of its contents sloshing over the edge and going ignored as they pattered to the floor.
There you all are! I was starting to think I'd be drinking alone!
She walked right up to Basilio, who hadn't risen, and pointed to the golden crown now sitting on her head.
You're in my seat, oaf.
Obviously, not having anyone else to drink with hadn't stopped her, Robin realized with a barely suppressed grunt of laughter. Basilio rolled his eye and rose from his seat before bowing low in an unmistakably mocking manner.
I see you wasted no time acquiring a new hat befitting your station.
Bite me, you overgrown mule.
Not even if you paid me, you upstart strumpet.
Flavia ignored the older man and flopped down, much the same way Basilio had. She fidgeted around, twisting and getting comfortable before she leaned back and threw a leg up over the arm of the low couch, breaking out into a satisfied grin.
Great! Now we drink!
Robin stepped out onto the great balcony outside the Khan's chambers overlooking the forest outside the Colosseum. The noise and alcohol were going to his head, and the last thing he needed was a hangover. Basilio had roped Chrom and Vaike into a drinking contest, one which he was clearly winning, and the women were all congregating around Flavia as she told stories about rising to such a high position in a male-ruled nation. Sully, in particular, was listening raptly. Stahl hadn't left the food alone since it arrived some time ago, and Virion sat with Frederick, trying to figure out some local variant of chess. The tactician took a deep breath of the frigid air, some of the dizziness abating as his breath fogged in front of him. The Feroxy liquor was strong stuff, and the thought of marching all the way back to Elistol with a hangover sent chills down his spine. Sipping at some water, he noticed Longku watching the shepherds from the balcony not far from where he was leaning.
Is this kind of celebration normal? It seems kind of underwhelming considering the change of a ruler.
Happens so often that people barely notice. How did you beat Raimi?
I, distracted her with a wind spell, knocked her off balance, and forced her to yield.
Huh. You are a gifted tactician to think so lightly on your feet. I look forward to serving under you. I look forward to dueling with you even more.
Thanks.
Robin quickly retreated inside. Longku had a burning intensity about him that was at once terrifying and awe-inspiring. Coupled with the whole not-speaking often thing, the man was somewhat intimidating. Robin sighed as he walked by the belching contest between Basilio and Vaike. It seemed Chrom was a magnet for strange individuals. The tactician hesitated, pausing mid-stride when he realized that Chrom had passed out, and was slumped backwards over his low chair.
Can't hold his liquor, huh?
It's okay, he's still young! But now that you're here...
A stein full of amber liquid was pressed into Robin's hands as he was forced down onto a seat next to a dangerously swaying Vaike. Basilio had an expectant glint in his good eye.
Time for round 2!
Oh yeah, bring it!
I just know I'm gonna regret this, but sure, why not?